Hi, this is Steve Gillmor, and this is the Gillmor Gang. We've got people coming in from CES in Vegas. Robert Scoble on the phone. Are you there?
Hey, how are you doing, Steve?
Okay. You have Loic with you, or is this just you?
No, he ran off with the CMO from Kodak. We'll start some rumors in Vegas.
Okay. Here in the Valley, we have Kevin Marks. Welcome, Kevin.
Hi there. Nice to see you again.
Nice to see you. We have several special guests today. I don't know if Mike Arrington's going to be able to join us or not, but somebody who was sitting next to him at the Nexus One event and who asked the only decent question, I think, in the entire press conference, the editor-in-chief of Search Engine Land, Danny Sullivan. Welcome, Danny.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us. And another familiar face for Gillmor Gang watchers is, I'm not sure what his title is these days, but he's the co-founder of FriendFeed and now at Facebook, Paul Buchheit.
Hi, Steve.
Thanks for joining us, Paul. So let me get a little bit of the news out of the way as far as from Mr. Buchheit. What's your title?
I don't know. I don't actually have a title.
What are you working on?
We're working on a couple of different things. So about half the FriendFeed team is working on some new infrastructure for Facebook, which we're actually starting to get deployed pretty soon, and that's pretty exciting. I'm also starting to work on some startup-related things. We're looking at possibly acquiring other companies and that type of thing.
So when you say infrastructure, are you talking about FriendFeedy-like infrastructure that would be going to...
Yeah, we're taking a lot of the lessons that we've learned from FriendFeed and then applying them here. Seeing, obviously, with some adaptation to the needs of Facebook, but helping to build out new systems that can adapt to new features and
Is that you?
What happened?
Is that your, do you have a phone there?
I think that was mine, actually. Sorry.
Oh. It's like somebody's vibrator went off. Go ahead, Paul.
So one of the big values here at Facebook is just the ability to move fast and release new features. And what we hope to do is enable a lot more new features, a lot more product innovation, and really help people get things out a lot faster, and really just like improve the core infrastructure.
Mm-hmm. I noticed that there was a message from Mark Benioff the other day about an article that Eric Schoenfeld wrote for TechCrunch, the top 10 technologies that were going to have an impact or something like it for 2010, and it mentioned Salesforce Chatter, and Mark sent some sort of stream message which he tagged with my name and a couple of other people, and because of the way that I have Facebook set up, I started getting not only Mark's message in email, but I also got the people who were responding to it. And I went and looked at the page, and it starts to look an awful lot like FriendFeed. You've got likes, and you've got shares, and you've got, it's really quite startling how this seems to be sort of manifesting itself. Is that an indication of what we're talking about here?
Yeah, I think that it's pretty clear that the two products, this was part of the reason that I think the acquisition made sense, is that the two products are moving in the same direction a lot with in terms of the stream and the features that it supports. And yeah, obviously the comments and likes are practically identical on the two products.
Also, there was somebody commented today about there's some sort of RSS icon that seems to be making itself visible. It just looks like the aggregation features of Facebook are starting to look very friend feed like. Is that just wishful thinking, or is that something that's starting to emerge?
I think those features have been in there for quite a while now. I'm not aware of any recent additions. I could be wrong though, but I think the ability to import the RSS feeds has been in there for a long time.
So what about promised but never delivered features on friend feed like stream splicing? Are we going to see that coming in on in Facebook?
I think that's pretty far down the road for Facebook. There's a lot more immediate improvements that are going to be worked on.
What about for friend feed?
You know what? I have. I should take a look at it. It's on my to-do list to find out.
Yeah, that's what you said last time.
I know. I've got a big to-do list. It should be pretty easy according to Brett, but I haven't had a chance to look at it, and he just had a baby, so I don't think he's going to look at it right away either.
Okay, so it's still possible.
Yeah, I mean, technically, we did most of the work necessary to make that work. I think there's just a couple of changes that have to happen to enable it.
All right, so moving to sort of more general topics, and I'd like to start with you, Paul, on this as well. There were several major rollouts this week, or at least from some people's perspective. But I'd say that the primary one was the Nexus One phone that Danny and myself and others were attended the press event. As of the guy that pushed Gmail out, at Google, and what's your take on Nexus One?
Well, I haven't had a chance to try it out yet, but I've seen the demos and I've read about it, and it looks like a really great phone. I think it's exciting to see something that's really on the same level as the iPhone. I think that'll make it better for everyone to have a couple of options out there. I did have an Android phone actually for a short time last year, and it at the time it had some pretty obvious shortcomings, but I really appreciated a lot of the integration that it had with Gmail and some of the other Google products.
Danny Sullivan, how do you feel about several days later? How do you feel about the impact of the Google phone?
I mean, I like it. I'm an iPhone user, and I couldn't give up the iPhone to go over to it. I was a long time Windows Mobile user, and I still feel like Android's stuck in between Windows Mobile and iPhone. There are just things that still feel clunky in a lot of ways. There were some surprises too. I mean, it's integrated with Gmail, but then I run Gmail off of Google Apps, so I run it on my own domain, and it doesn't understand that. I had to still go through and manually configure some of the stuff that's up there. But I like it. The thing I still kind of grapple with is it really hasn't changed a lot of the stuff that you would think Google is trying to change. If you go to Gmail was very revolutionary. I mean, it really changed for a lot of people how they considered they were going to deal with email. And you kind of think, well, if Google's going to put everything behind a big phone, it should do that. And I basically have a phone that's a brick if I want to use it on AT&T, or it's a 2G brick. So that's not revolutionary. I can't take it from one provider to the other, just like I can't take the iPhone very easily over to T-Mobile, and I certainly can't take it to Verizon. So I feel like the big revolution really is simply that rather than Windows Mobile being a rival to iPhone, we get Android being a rival to iPhone, and that's not necessarily a revolution. That's just a change of who gets to be, I suppose, in number two.
Kevin Marks, do you agree with that?
I think it's a bigger change because the Android is so flexible in terms of being able to replace parts of it compared to the iPhone or Windows Mobile. And that makes a big difference.
But Danny just basically said that that's not true, that you have to manually configure
Gmail
in his configuration.
Yeah, there's a problem in the different cell networks use different technologies. So you want a phone that works on all, you've got to use you've got to have multiple radios in it. That's the structural problem there. In Europe, everyone's on GSM, so the phones are much more transferable. That's mostly an infrastructure problem rather than a software problem, if you like. That means your phone has to be physically built to have multiple radios in. So that's the sort of stickiness problem there. but actually the ability to replace entire chunks of the operating system on the applications on it, which is something you can't do with the iPhone, is something that's quite interesting. And that has a lot of possibilities there.
Robert Scolby, you want to jump in? Can you hear me, Robert?
Sorry?
Yeah. Do you want to jump in on this? What's your take a couple of days later on the Nexus One?
People I've been showing it to here at the Consumer Electronics Show are really impressed. They think it is a significant step up for Google. There's some pushback on why is Google, taking on the OEMs and forcing the OEMs to deal with their brand name, because like Motorola just came out with Droid 2 months ago, and now it seems like a lame phone compared to this, both technically, because this new phone is much faster and smoother. It's better designed, but also they seem on the outs where Google now has stamped this phone as the official Google phone, where Droid doesn't yet have that stamp of approval and isn't available in the Google Store.
Well, it seems like HTC is suddenly the darling of pretty much everybody. Ballmer showed an HTC phone in his keynote last night. What is that, the HT1, Danny? Or HT2? What was that phone that Ballmer was showing off last night?
I didn't catch the model name of it. He held one up, and I remember him saying this.
But it's an HTC phone.
Oh, yeah. Although it's interesting today, too, because there was the news that HTC is rolling out another line of smartphones that are using a Qualcomm smartphone operating system. So they're sort of beholden to nobody. They did tons of phones for Windows Mobile before. They're doing Android phones. They'll do phones for anybody, including themselves. So,
well, the thing that I found that was kind of a little bit odd about the press conference is that you had, and maybe Paul, you can tell me a little bit about the pecking order, or at least the hierarchy of some of the people. Andy Rubin, Mario, and I've forgotten his last name, who seemed to be the product manager for the Android group, or at least for that particular phone. These guys are engineers and VP level folks at Google, and then to the left of them were the CEO and the co-CEO of Motorola and HTC. It just seemed like there was a certain realignment going on as far as the device manufacturers. Would you agree with that, Paul?
I'm not sure I understand the question, but I think I haven't been at Google for a few years now, to be clear, but Andy Rubin, as I understand, is Android. Really, he's the guy with the vision. He's the right person to be there. Oh yeah,
I'm not suggesting that any of them were the wrong person. It's just that the sort of the balance. If you look at these things as sort of like Kremlinology in the old days, where you would take a look at the position of the Politburo on top of Lenin's tomb to figure out who was in charge or who was about to be in charge. It just seems like that HTC. This company HTC seems to have vaulted into a position of, certainly not matching the incredible genius and power of what Steve Jobs has been doing for the last 15 years, but substantially more, in touch and strategic than just about any other hardware manufacturer in the space. And
that's right.
They've come out of nowhere. So
no, I wouldn't say they've come out of nowhere. They've been doing Windows Mobile phones for ages, and really innovative Windows Mobile phones. What I wanted to sit down actually is to go through and find out what's the number of Windows Mobile phones they're doing today compared to the number of Android phones. This is my phone. This is from 2006, and it's an HTC phone. It's got the flash like the Android phone has. It was able to do 3G. It was able to do a lot of the stuff that Android can do now. It's a Windows Mobile, and it was made by HTC, and it was any one of a number of HTC devices. But I would agree that Android certainly seems to be pushing them up even higher in people's awareness. And often I don't think Microsoft lets you know that it was HTC making the phones. And I don't recall them being out on stages and stuff like that in the way that we saw yesterday or the day before with Google.
Right, and what we saw last night with HP, it was almost. I mean, first of all, it felt like a QVC broadcast for the most part, with Steve Ballmer as the products, spokesman. But they had three slates sort of arrayed in a semicircle, and I think the message was that sort of classic Microsoft message of we're not, this is all about choice, and the choice is between everybody else and a number of manufacturers aligning behind the Microsoft brand. So, Robert, when you say that there's, you're at CES, which is it's a channel show. It's the hardware, meetup, and so certainly those people might be concerned about this. But as Danny was suggesting, I think that there's a really interesting sort of swap that's going on where Google has taken many of the pages from the Microsoft playbook in terms of devices and somehow come out with a more disruptive combination than we've seen from Microsoft to date.
I agree with that. And by branding a phone, they've put the OEMs on notice that they have to step up the game and support Google in a better way if they want to be seen as supporting the Android platform. Now Motorola has to step up with a better device than the Droid is to get into the store and to get people's attention and get the Google brand name. And, the Google brand name does mean a lot. A lot of my friends ordered the phone right away just based on the Google brand name without even seeing the phone, right? So, and if they can build trust with consumers that they are going to bring out leading-edge devices, and this device is clearly the number 2 device right away. It's better than any of my Nokia phones that I've played with. It's better than any of the BlackBerry phones I've played with, unless you need a keyboard, and that's going to be an issue. And it's better than the Windows mobile phone. So the only one it's not better than is the iPhone, but it's close. I've been using it all week here at CES, and I'm very impressed with the phone.
Well, I wonder whether, Danny, what's your take on the audio capabilities? Do you think that that's a viable replacement for most of the keyboard issues?
The on-screen keyboard, you mean, with Android?
Yeah.
Oh, you mean the typing in? I had a lot of fun.
I know you had some interesting problems with that on Twitter.
I was using it to tweet about 3 hours after we got it, and I would ask people to tell me something they wanted me to tweet, and I'd speak it into the phone, and it was funny. The best thing was when I had my son, who's half English and still has an English accent, speak into it, and the first time it said, "Can you understand my accent?" and it came back saying something like, "I'm at a drug rehabilitation place with Girl Scouts." I mean, it was really bizarre.
I have that exact problem with it too. Yeah,
but actually it works fairly well if you talk to it clearly. But the problem is it doesn't get things right, and so then you go through to try to correct it. And I found that it was horrible trying to select where I wanted to make the changes using the on-screen keyboard.
Mm-hmm.
If I used the trackball, I could start to use the trackball to be more accurate, and then suddenly I was like being taken out of the program entirely because the trackball would send me off to a button or whatever. So the on-screen keyboard, whereas with the iPhone, I mean, I can be walking along and just banging away with one finger on it, and that keyboard, it's awesome. So I think that, again, it's one of those cases where it still has a ways to go, but that was the most intriguing thing to me, was this, I can talk into it and it can figure out what I'm saying, and I want to play with that a lot more.
Mike Arrington's joined us. Welcome, Mike. Did we hear him?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can now.
Oh, there you go.
We're talking about the Nexus One, and you've had a phone you revealed in your review, which I read courtesy of Howard Stern. That I don't quite understand what that means about the apocalypse, but something is nigh. But is there? I mean, luckily he's only on satellite, so it's not quite the revolution. But do you have you been doing anything with since December, early December, with the audio features of Android 2.1?
Well, the thing that I've been testing and really like is the audio keyboard, and I think that's what you're talking about, right?
Yeah.
So anytime there's a text feature on, I'll show you on the phone. So I've gone into Compose. I've gone into Compose here, and you can see there's a microphone on the bottom. It's probably a little blurry, but it's right, over there. And if you press that button, and I'll just say testing the Nexus 1 audio keyboard on the Gillmor Gang. And here's here's what it said.
Something about, what was that, Danny?
It said it says Tuscany Texas 1 audio keyboard on the Gillmor tank.
Right.
So that works great, right? So,
it's surprisingly accurate.
I'm having Newton flashbacks here. I suppose that shows how old I am.
Bomber should be very
that
afraid.
Works great. No idea.
Okay, so but
it has this great live wallpaper. That's the one I've chosen is this smoke with neon green, and that's pretty neat. So it's got that going for it.
uh-huh.
Mike, one thing that you got me into was Google Voice, and that's been a lifesaver here at CES because AT&T and T-Mobile really don't work very well here right now because of all the geeks in town. But Google Voice rings all three of my phones all at one time, and I can pick up the one that actually rings because it has connectivity. So thanks for getting me into that.
I actually prefer the picture you're using for Robert Scoble. I prefer the one in the Viking helmet. Do you guys have that one?
Well, we'll check with our service bureau, and we'll get back to you.
You know the one I'm talking about, right? That's a much better photo than the one you're using for him. But yeah, Robert, I agree with you. Have you ported your phone number to Google yet?
What I'm doing is forward. So if you call my number that's on the internet, it forwards to my Droid, which has Google Voice running on it, and then it forwards that call to Google Voice. That device takes over Google Voice. It's really cool.
But I mean, Google Voice is not a shipping program, is it? I mean, I think you're the only
It is
one.
on the Android.
I think Mike is the only one
Yeah.
who actually has the feature.
I think you need
makes
an
it interesting.
invite, and I think I think you need an invite still.
I don't think the
I'm not
wait
sure
is
though.
very long at this point. If you have your name in on the list, I
I know,
think
but
that
you
get
have
one pretty
you
quickly.
have the special service that allows you to swap your number over.
Yeah, I ported my phone number to Google, and I actually get the feeling they want that to be something they offer to people, but it's a real pain because the carriers aren't set up to port phone numbers to anyone other than other carriers, and so it took like 3 days, and the voice just switched over at some point, and I didn't know when. And then the problem was really, I had two phones, whatever. So at one point one stopped working, but the text messages were the real problem because the text messages didn't come through for good 2 or 3 days, and they were all lost. They weren't. It's not like they came in late. They were gone forever. And so on a that doesn't really scale if you're talking about hundreds of thousands or millions of people moving their phone number over. The customer service problem is huge. So I think they have to work that stuff out first.
So the thing that I was most impressed about at the press event, and in general about the new phone is that each of these services by themselves, with the exception of course of Google Voice, which caused Mike to throw his iPhone into the ocean, that these are sort of iterative features. But if you string them together, like, for example, what Danny was trying to do, at least initially, which is to tweet and enter the micro-message network with audio, it starts to become really interesting, it seems to me. Kevin Marks, you've got Ribbit as a competitor to this technology. Do you think this is going to start to accelerate the adoption of these types of services?
I think so. I mean, a lot of it is about, the thing about Android is that it's much easier to get apps onto it than it is to get them onto the iPhone. You don't have to go through the approval bag. So that we'll be able to see more of that. But the other part of connecting to the micro messaging services, there's already a bunch of apps that will let you record stuff and post that to Twitter. You know, that again. That's not new. There's stuff people have done for a while, but it hasn't been a natural thing to do because it hasn't been an easy way to get back to it. I think we're going to see much more natural fluidity between switching back and forth between spoken and textual coming over time, and that's going to change a lot of things. I think one of the other things we're seeing at CES, at least I'm not there, but I'm seeing some of the reports, is seeing Android tablets and things embedded in cars and stuff like that, where we're starting to see the things that were roughly possible a few years ago are now starting to happen because these platforms are spreading. We're starting to see browsers in cars, speech recognition, stuff like that, and that suddenly changes the game again. And one of the key things that that Google did with Android was putting the good navigation stuff into it, and suddenly your phone becomes your GPS, becomes your navigation system. That starts getting quite interesting as it's coupling the different pieces together. There's a lot of possibilities there, I think.
Paul, go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say one of the things that I think is perhaps really unique is the fact that it is built in, the voice recognition, and it's built into everything. I think I maybe got to one screen where I couldn't get to that microphone. And I can remember when Live Mobile Maps, or whatever Bing Maps was called in like 2006, they had voice recognition, and you could actually go through and say, okay, find restaurant, and it worked pretty well, but you had to first of all know that it was there and it wasn't in other apps. And since it's like built right into this version of Android, this phone, it may be that people will start to do it a lot more. Certainly when you're doing searches and you're only telling it one or two words, that's very convenient. In fact, I found myself very resentful of the fact if it didn't do it right, that I'd have to go through and use the keyboard. I didn't want to bother with the keyboard when I needed to search for something that was a word or two long.
Well, the point that they made, I think, which is, augurs well for the future, is that this thing, because it's server-side based, it learns. So this has been the typical reason that Google was able to achieve such a velocity in terms of advertisers, is because the more advertisers, the more possible effective choices in terms of matching the advertiser to the information. Isn't that going to be true, Paul, in terms of these kinds of audio services sort of blending with search and perhaps Google Apps, Gmail, etc.?
Absolutely. I think that's probably a big part of the opportunity, and also, obviously right now, based on Michael's demo, the quality may not be there yet, but that's just a matter of time as they gather more data and more training. I think that'll be really exciting once I can tweet or do whatever by voice.
And on the flip side, Mike, what do you think that this is going to do to, like for example, Apple? The iPhone doesn't learn at this point. It's kind of stuck in this previous metaphor, which is, okay, here are the services, we've invented this whole platform, this is what we've done, and we'll get back to you the next time with improvements. Are they going to be able to get away with that moving forward, or are they going to have to start to move to more of an on-demand software cloud-based intersection with the iPhone?
Well, the way I look at the battle between the two projects is it's something we've been talking about for a long time. And Apple's a closed system, which means they're in complete control of the entire experience. Sorry about that. And so the upside of that is they don't have to worry about building lots of driver support because they know their hardware. They know exactly what it's capable of. There's going to be a lot fewer bugs and problems like that. The downside is that with from the iPhone is with an open system, you've got everybody able to sort of contribute to the project, and you've got 26 handset manufacturers now and all these software guys. And so they're driving the whole system forward instead of just innovating at the application level. And I don't know who's going to win. I mean, who won between Apple and Microsoft in the closed versus open operating system war?
They both did.
Yeah, they both did, right. And so I don't know how you define a winner or a loser, or more profitable or less. But
I wasn't suggesting that this is going to be about winners and losers. It was more about how is it going to. I mean, Tim O'Reilly wrote a really good analysis, I think, of the.
Yeah, he wrote a pretty good post. I think that The one problem Apple has is a lot of the decisions they make don't seem to be based on what's best for the user. It seems to be made for strategic fear reasons, and that can't be good for them in the long run. If I were them, I would have embraced Google Voice right from the beginning, and other apps that they don't like, that just to show that they're willing to sort of let third parties, establish a beachhead on their platform.
But I think they're going to embrace it now, and I think I thought that was interesting, the answer that they gave me when I asked the question about, now that Google's a hardware manufacturer, are they going to perhaps not let Apple in with Google Voice at this point? And they gave a kind of a sort of a half, I wasn't listening kind of answer.
Well, I think Apple's greatest strength is their arrogance when it comes to product, but that also can be a weakness. And I don't sense any difference in Apple or any willingness to change the way they've done things for quite a while now. I don't know if anyone else does, but
Danny?
I don't see them changing.
Danny, your thoughts?
On Apple?
Yeah. Are they going to change?
Well, I don't really like Apple, which is ironic because I have an iPhone and a Mac now.
And you used to only be a Windows Mobile guy. That's
I was
more
Windows
ironic.
Mobile, and I'm still running Windows XP on the Mac in addition to the Mac. I don't know. I don't necessarily see them changing. What they seem to have shown so far is what Mike said, that they like to have control of everything, and that they, unlike Google, don't understand that when you are more open, or when you actually do things that are against your business interest, it's in your business interest, because then people don't say you're just trying to do stuff to help yourself. So I'd like to see them do it, but I also think one of their huge strengths are that when you are in complete control of everything, it all works much better. Or like with the Android phone that's come out now with Nexus 1, right? I can't go out and get a car case. I can't get a case for it right now. I don't know what the car holder is going to be. I don't know when it's going to be. And yet there's all these other Android things that are out there. Whereas with the iPhone, when the 3G came out, most of the 3 stuff worked. The connectors are all there. It's a much easier thing for everybody to support and build an entire ecosystem around when you basically have the same phone.
So what part of not being a fan are you? I don't quite get that.
Because I don't like the fact that they do stuff like say, sorry, Google Voice can only operate this way, or sorry, no, you can't have a second mouse button on your damn computer, even though it would be helpful. You're going to get it this way in black, and that's the color you get. There you are. Or that they just seem to want everything to be in their own little Apple world. I don't like that.
I just love how Google gets a free pass on this.
Well, no, they don't. In fact, I'm feeling more concerned these days, because in the past, if you didn't like the way that Microsoft seemed to be so big, you could have thought, well, y'all have Apple. They'll be the scrappy little underdog. But they're not really a scrappy underdog anymore. So then it was like, well, Google, they'll be the scrappy little underdog. Well, they're not a scrappy underdog either. I feel like I'm being crushed by three giant things. And I don't.
It's a good problem.
Well, it's a good problem when everybody does well, but when look at Google. Oh, it's the open Android phone. It's so wonderful. Really? Where's the Flickr app? I mean,
Flickr.
They did not
Flickr?
say. They did not say when they did the conference. They didn't say, by the way, when you take a picture with our great film, with our great camera, you can upload it to Flickr. They said,
why Flickr? I mean, do you use Flickr? I was thinking about this yesterday. How many apps
I use
does
Flickr,
Apple
and I
have?
think a lot more people use Flickr than
800 million?
Picasa. Sorry.
Yeah, but I'm gonna, if I actually use
It's
this
not the
phone,
Yahoo, right, the Flickr
I'm gonna
app.
start using Picasa.
What's the
It sounds
app?
pretty cool.
I
What's
use
the
Flickr. I
app?
just email it.
What's the app on the iPhone that isn't on the Android that is actually causing people to say, I have to get the iPhone because it has that app?
Kindle
What's the
on
Microsoft
iPhone.
Office?
Kindle
The
on
The
the
UI.
iPhone.
It's the UI.
That's that's not an app. The UI is
It is
whatever.
an app. It is an app,
No.
and I'll tell you why. And this is so. Here's how I ended up on the iPhone. We moved back to the U.S. and my wife, who had been along with this horrible phone for ages in the U.K., I said, when we get over there, I'll finally get you an iPhone. We said, gave her the iPhone. The next day, I reached for the iPhone to start going onto the web, and I was Mr. I can't live without a regular keyboard. I can't live without all these things. I hate Apple. And it was so damn easy to use. There was no going back. The multi-touch zooming and everything else. I realized that just the ordinary things that I was doing, I was saving so much time with
Yeah,
it.
like
So
this
I
one
think it's-
mouse button thing. I would refuse to use a Mac until now I refuse to use anything else. You get over the fact that you have to push the control key.
You know what I like about Danny, and I got to start doing this, is he starts off his whole fanboy rant with, "And I hate Apple."
Right.
And like you're like, oh well, he's not an Apple fan, so I'm assuming what he's going to say. And then it's just this half hour of why Apple is the best because of every little detail on it. So.
But I don't want them to be. I want Google to be
on my Droid.
I want Google. I know, but you had to put it on there, didn't you?
Here's about Flickr.
No, m.flickr.com.
You had to put it on there. Go over to your Droid and try to change the default search from Google to Bing.
Why would I do that?
Well, I don't know. It's all about choice.
If somebody woke up out of a coma, they would just think
Internet
that this had
Explorer,
gone totally berserk.
Choice, right?
Go over to your Droid and pick up your Bing and then do the... It's like, well, what are you talking about?
I don't even know where the Droid is anymore, but Danny, I'll go back to my original question, which is,
sure.
What's the actual third-party app that on the iPhone platform that you can't get on the Droid that means people are buying the iPhone? What's the Microsoft Office of the iPhone?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know that there's. I don't know. I think that answer is different for different people.
Scoville says what?
Facebook is still better. That's what he said.
Facebook is still better on the iPhone, and Tweety is way better still than Seasnick or Twidroid on the Droid or on the Google phone.
Steve, change that picture. I sent you 3 options on Skype.
I don't know that we have a single app. I think it's different for different people, right? I mean, I would love to see some survey that said, more people are buying the iPhone because they get to use Tweety, but I don't think that's the case.
So there was a survey that I just got.
Well, if it's not the case, why at every Microsoft keynote now they put Twitter up at the opening slide? What was on in the middle of the keynote was Twitter. They know people are buying phones for Facebook and Twitter.
Or they know that all of you guys in the audience are Twitter.
Lately has had Twitter and Facebook in it. And so if your leading social networks aren't as good on your device, you're going to lose customers.
I think Robert has a point, but I'm not sure there are any other killer apps. I mean, maybe there are. But I think Seismic on the Android is a perfectly usable Twitter application.
It's usable, but it's not as good as Tweety. I'm sorry. I use both. I've been using both because I can't even get on Tweety because of AT&T here at CES. So I've been using Seismic all week.
But Robert,
it's capable, but it's not as nice.
But do you really think someone's going to think, I'd really like to get the iPhone and it has all these other great features, but no, I really like to get this Android phone. It has all these great features, but you know what? It doesn't carry Tweety, so I'm not going to do it. I mean, I think the things that they're first of all looking at is, what's the network? What's the cost of the phone? Do I have a plan already? What am I going to, and if you're a new person who's never even had a smartphone, I don't know that you're necessarily contemplating a lot of that stuff. So I had a friend earlier this year. He needed a smartphone. I took him down and I went to a bunch of different stores and I looked at things. I put him on the iPhone not because of any particular app, but because he's an idiot and he needed something he could use that was easy. And if that's fanboyish, Mike, believe me, I would love for Android to be that easy. I really would, because then I'll shift over.
Yeah, on the Android phone, there's two places that it really shines. Google Voice, which I'll let Aaron can talk about forever, but Google Maps is so much better on Android than it is on iPhone. And you have to use the phone to understand that. You have to drive around someplace like Vegas or Portland, someplace that you don't live, and really use a map to see how much dramatically better it is.
I'll also say that T-Mobile is a hell of a lot better than AT&T on the data.
But
no way. I'm sorry, Mike. I can't even get T-Mobile in my house, so screw you.
Actually, that's a good point. Is that T-Mobile's coverage isn't as good as AT&T in terms of sometimes T-Mobile just won't have any coverage at all, but when it does, the data flow is so much faster on their 3G versus AT&T.
But aren't they on the same towers, at least out here?
I don't have any idea. I always assumed it's just because so many people are on AT&T, but
I think not of where Robert lives. There's not much coverage up that coast either way, is there? Do you get AT&T driving up to San Francisco? Or does it drop out?
Robert has no idea.
I dropped out on Devil's Slide on
Yeah.
AT&T where Verizon doesn't drop out. T-Mobile does drop out.
Well,
They
Robert
don't have as much
is
coverage.
a special case because he actually doesn't drive his car. He leaves it to the automatic technology.
Steve, use the,
Do
use
it
the
for a
Absolutely.
second picture.
Actually, we could talk about that because that's one of the big things here at CES is auto technology. I had dinner with the Ford
I
executives
posted
last night, and
the pictures that you sent me in the chat room so people can replace, on their own. They can replace the picture.
on their own.
Well, I don't know how to actually take the TriCaster down in order to be able to add it as a picture without taking us off the air. So I'm not going to try that. And if anybody who knows how to do that wants to drop something into the chat room, they can tell me. But in the meantime, I am looking at this picture.
anyway, here at the Consumer Electronics
that's
Show,
not him,
Steve.
You should, Robert. What?
What's that actor's
Steve,
name?
I just wanted to tell you a few things that are hot here at the Consumer Electronics Show.
Okay.
I just saw 3D television. That's pretty cool. But 3D video games is very cool. I think that's actually going to
Well, until Avatar, I
long
couldn't have
before
cared
we
less
all
about
get
3D.
3D TVs.
But, I mean,
What's that?
Robert, with the glasses? With the
Yeah. So there's the Avatar video game and a few other video games. It's pretty high quality and it's really fun to play with.
yep. Yeah, I wear the glasses now in the shower. Makes the experience much better. Okay, thank you.
Were you guys disappointed with the Microsoft announcements last night? Like I was. The people I was sitting with were like, "Where's the news? Why did they spend
Well,
an
I
hour and a
thought
half
I
talking
thought Bill
to us
Gates
without
looked.
releasing anything interesting?"
I thought Bill had lost a lot of weight. Microsoft is at CES is a dead conference. I don't know why you're there.
I've never been.
No, seriously, why are you there, Robert?
There's
Hello?
a lot of parties.
So that's Philip Seymour Hoffman or something like that.
One thing
That's
I
who
thought was
that guy
interesting. I mean,
is.
I watched it remotely, and I think that's the longest that Microsoft has ever spoken about search at CES, which for me was great because to me, it's a consumer product as well, search. And he was up there, Ballmer, going bing, bing, bing. So, they showed a few things about it, and it's not the kind of thing that I think that particular audience was going to be wowed by. But I just appreciated that it actually got more than a sentence, if that, is what's been the case in the past.
I
No,
thought
I thought that was the news, the keynote where they announced that they're expanding their deal with HP, and HP is now putting Bing as the default engine, which is a continuation of how Microsoft has dealt with the world for
Yeah, because
15
that's worked
years.
so well for them with Verizon. I mean, it's good that they're doing that, but I think they have this big deal with Verizon, and what we find when they started trying to push Bing onto people who are using the BlackBerry on Verizon, the people on Verizon were going, "Where the hell's Google?" And Verizon had to do a blog post saying, "Oh, here's how to find it." So I think those deals, they probably still need to pursue them, but they're not going to be killer things. They're not going to be things that are suddenly up their market share by huge amounts.
Well, I loaded Internet Explorer for the first time in about 3 years, just before the show, and I typed in Google, on the webpage, and it took me to Bing, and put Google in the search. So then I had to click on the Google link.
Can I stretch without being put on the camera?
We're just trying to provide context to the audio, Mike.
Well, I mean, so I tried going to Bing.com on the Droid, and they haven't got a mobile site. Like, what are they thinking?
So let me ask Paul a question.
Just zoom out and mess with it. Just
Paul, over the
Hey,
weekend,
they just got it for the iPhone. You got to give them a break. That was a big leap. That was a big leap for them, right?
We need a mobile site. It's not hard. It's a style sheet.
Paul, I noticed over the weekend that you got, or during the holidays, that you, I don't know whether you were trying to beta test FriendFeed to see if it was still working or not, but whatever you were doing, you got off into this rant about thin-skinned Microsoft developers attacking. Can you explain what that was about?
I read that. That was pretty funny.
Yeah, what was that about?
That was I just made some small remark in one of my blog posts about Microsoft, and one of the comments was not impressed by my remark. So I was just amused by it, and so I asked the crowd on Friend Feed why this person would care so much that I had made some remark about Microsoft.
Right. So, do you remember what the remark was? It was something about why would you ever want to develop on the Microsoft stack for the rest of your life, or something like that?
No, it was never anything like that. It was just, I think I said in the context of I did a blog post about predictions about the future, and I mentioned Microsoft being irrelevant, and that set someone off. They didn't like the word irrelevant.
Gee, who knew that it would set somebody off?
Yeah. So I mean, I guess a lot of people have strong feelings about these things. I'm not one of them.
You're not. Well,
I didn't
get
in mind
that nuance.
that when you see strong feelings, there's also a lot of people who have livelihoods based on their choice of what they supported. There's companies who live off the Microsoft ecosystem.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think Robert has it. It's obviously you have stronger feelings if it means something to you. To me, it's just incidental.
It's a parallel developer universe. That's the thing. You go to the Microsoft Developer Conference, and they have a parallel set of all the things that we use, and you don't recognize them, but you can sort of map bits of them through. And and they're just getting all from one company. And the Apple world used to be like that too before they got better at incorporating open source tools in there too.
Yeah, exactly. And I think to sort of explain the irrelevant thing. Obviously, they're very relevant to this core group of developers. But I think what we're seeing is that there's this other world of the web and mobile where they just aren't part of it at all. And that new world, the mobile and web world, is where you're seeing a lot of the innovation and where the future is being developed. And you just don't see any Microsoft technology. Just isn't really important.
But
here we are talking about Android and iPhone. We're not talking about Windows Mobile, right?
Right.
And
they're clearly behind in mobile right now, and you see that on the show floor here.
I'm not so sure that they're so clearly behind. If they've got HTC coming out with a series of phones that are going to run Windows Mobile, how far behind are they?
It's just a prediction, but I don't think those phones are going to be. I think you're going to continue talking about Android and iPhone just as you did today, and you're not going to be talking about the Windows Mobile.
Well, I don't disagree with that, but Microsoft has made a lot of money by just selling into the corporate environment and overseas and every other damn place.
The more interesting thing about Android, guys, Steve, when I started up my new Google Nexus and I put in my Gmail address, it instantly loaded all my apps. And it instantly loaded all my contacts. If Google continues to build that kind of ecosystem where things just happen from device to device based on my email, my identity, I think that's
well. I think that's a fair point.
Very interesting.
Mike Arrington made the point in his 10 best things that he uses post that he's. I think it was about what was that Zoho, that you dropped Zoho not because it was better or worse, but because it wasn't Google.
Yeah.
So certainly I think that's an accurate reflection of what's going on here. But I guess what I'm trying to drill down on a little bit, Paul, is there's a certain. Let me just put it this way: there's a certain amount of arrogance on the part of the HTML5 crowd. That this is all going to just start to happen, and that we're all going to just march in lockstep down the Google road because they're good, and that the old bad convicted monopolist is passé. I mean, I think people get a little irritated with that kind of irrelevant comment. I mean, isn't that what you're really saying?
I don't think I'm saying all of that. I do think though that.
Notice how you didn't say that you could have said no. I'm not saying that, but you didn't.
Well, no, I mean obviously there are parts of that I think are true. I think the web is more important than the Windows world.
But why do you think that Microsoft doesn't get that too?
Because their whole existence has been based in the Windows world, and that's where they've made their investment, and they continue to see things from that perspective. I mean, their office on the web product.
Their office on the web product, once they ship it, is going to be better than what Google Apps does right now.
You think so?
See,
I would be surprised.
I mean, I don't think it's going to get the traction that Google Apps has gotten, but it's highly competitive.
Yeah, I spoke to someone who was working on it, and they didn't think it was going to go anywhere. But maybe things
I
have
agree
changed
that
since
it's
then.
not going to go anywhere. I didn't say that. I said that it's from a feature and performance perspective, it has features that are at least a push, and they're both free. And I think
But
that's
if
important.
it's not going to go anywhere, which is what you're saying, then it doesn't matter.
Well,
right?
why did Google do Google Apps in the first place? If it wasn't, for 3 years it didn't go anywhere, in terms of scale or anything else. But it turned out to be pretty important.
Here's how the reefness works for me, because I watched my wife try to help somebody with a resume, and she thought at first about using Microsoft Office and telling them to load up Microsoft Office, but that other person didn't have the Office loaded, and she didn't want to wait 20 minutes while we figured that out. So I said, why don't you just use Google Docs? She said, oh, I never thought about that. And sure enough, you go to Google Docs, you hit New, and you go to the templates. There's a resume template there, and done. What was really interesting was that other person on the other line wasn't a Gmail user, so now they're on Gmail because they were forced to get on Gmail. Now they're a Google Docs user, and now they see the other side of it, which is by having a web Office product, you have ubiquity, and now you can work with other people without having to worry about what software they have loaded or what device they have or anything. And I can fire up my iPhone and get on Google Docs right now and work with you on something, and I don't have to worry about, oh, do I have the right software loaded? Do you have the right software loaded? It all just works.
Danny,
now they're in the ecosystem.
Danny, do you use Google Docs?
Yeah, I've split. If it's a spreadsheet, I fire up Excel because Google Docs just can't match the stuff I want to do to it. It's so much easier. But more lighter stuff, I'm starting to move over so that I have it there. I'm getting to the point that rather than firing up Word, if I had to, on the rare occasions, use a Word document, that I might do that. But the rest of my family does. When again, I'd had enough, kind of like what Robert said, I had enough of installing Office on computers all over the house. So putting everybody else on Docs, my home technical support issues came to an end, and that's been great.
Okay, so
Danny,
Microsoft's toast.
One thing I wanted to ask you, I was just talking with the CMO from Kodak, and he was telling me how he's using Twitter to study what people are talking about. And he says he's now using that study to inform how he's buying Google AdWords and Google keywords and doing SEO on the pages. Tell me how you view the world of SEO changing right now.
With Twitter, or
with social coming into it? I mean, look at how we got 23,000 people watching my computer using Twitter. Used at the Google press conference. Twitter is clearly changing how people find out about web pages, web content, interesting information. And Kodak, I mean, this is Kodak, right? This is a 100-year-old company, is now using that data from the real-time web to inform where he should spend advertising money on. So if we all of a sudden start talking about Tiger Woods and photography or something, he's going to start buying ads on those pages because he knows everybody's talking about it. He's watching the real-time web and the streams that are going on and what humans are doing, and he's using that almost like Mahalo does to inform. Well,
Sure.
Tell me what you're seeing. That I wondered if you're seeing the same thing.
I guess social's been doing twin things, that it is giving you a quicker access to what the trends are so that you can react to either produce content or buy keywords if you want to go at it that way. And it's also just another source of new links. because the search engine by and large are still looking at what people are linking at. And so if you're able to build up people who are talking to you on Twitter, you're picking up the links off of that. And even though in Twitter, because Twitter itself will no follow the links, so supposedly you're not getting credit, that no follow falls off when Twitter gets repurposed on a lot of different sites. So, there's synergies that come between them, and I think that anybody who does search marketing in general needs to understand social these days as well. I've called them kissing cousins, and they're even closer than that they help each other.
Paul, are you seeing Facebook reacting to that with a new kind of advertising that will let the Kodaks of the world
Facebook's,
get involved in conversations and put ads in them?
Facebook's advertising is kind of, we're going to have a big conference in March, and one of the things I put on the panel, a session is called like Facebook and how it's like search ads. I can't remember, I was trying to call them like pre-search ads, but a lot of search marketers are very quietly talking amongst themselves about the success that they've been having with Facebook ads, because they're catching people who are, if you will, just about to make a search, and they're understanding how they can do the targeting based on some of the keywords within Facebook. Facebook's made a lot of changes to help you better understand what somebody may be interested in, not just by looking at their profile, but looking at things that they're like using in their status updates. So kind of like letting you target them by their searches as well. So, if Facebook, it's sort of like a whole new world that you can reach out to if you, are looking for ways to expand beyond what you're already hitting off of search, which is primarily Google.
Paul, any comments?
That all sounds right to me. I think it's a new way to connect with your customers. If the fan pages are very popular, and there's, I don't know, I'm not too involved with the ad program, but the success that I've heard about it's quite impressive. It's working very well.
All right. Well, we're having some technical problems here in terms of getting Mike Arrington back in. We've kind of lost control of being able to call directly out through a virtual keyboard and mouse that we're using. So I'm going to wind this down, just go once around the table, starting with Kevin Marks. So, given the announcements this week about the G phone and the relative lack of impact of Microsoft announcements, and from my perspective, CES in general, that it's really been, most people I think are just waiting for the 27th to see what the slate is, if that in fact is what's going to be announced. It's come down to a Microsoft, a Google, Apple sort of, I think, win-win situation. What's your take?
Well, I'm going to say HTML5 again, and you're going to get cross with me, but they both support that, and that's still the platform that works across them, and that's the piece that the others are picking up too. The web is the underlying platform we can use in many places, and part of there's been news this week of Microsoft joining the SVG working group and starting to sort of pick up on that world too. So that piece is still encouraging to me. I think there's it's more that now all the phones realize that web is not optional, web is something you have to do. And I think that the app stores and bits like that are sort of an augmentation to that. But to Danny's earlier point, I can go to Flickr on any of these phones and it works because they put the effort into building a mobile site that works well. And that's the new interesting part. And I think, backing up what Paul was saying about where the center of interesting development is, I think that's the strong part of it, is that because you can build stuff for the web and the assumption is that will work everywhere, that's part of the basic job of these platforms now. So some of the sort of platform war stuff is a little irrelevant.
Paul? Just your general thoughts about what, from my perspective, we've sort of turned a corner here. I have felt a palpable excitement that's breaking out as people realize that this is not just a one-horse race, that this is something that where there's a lot of strength coming in from both models, and I also think that Microsoft has got some really interesting horses in this sort of web operating system kind of environment. I think Silverlight's a incredibly powerful platform and will continue to grow. And I know you think the opposite. So, you want to sort of summarize what where you stand between what Kevin just said and what I just said?
I think that Microsoft has a lot of really interesting technology, like Silverlight. The issue is more the question of whether anyone's going to use these things. And I know inside the enterprise environment, they will. The places the traditional that Microsoft has owned traditionally, they will continue to be very important, just as IBM still dominates the mainframe. The question is, in these new environments of mobile phones and just the open web, what role will they play? And I think that they probably need to change their strategy. .NET is probably and the CLR is probably better than Java, for example, in many ways. But no one outside of the Microsoft world uses it, or at least no one I've ever met. When I go talk to startups or I just meet various companies, they're all basing their things on top of Linux. They're all using Google Docs and Gmail. No one is using any of the Microsoft things. And so as those companies grow into the big companies of the future, it's going to be without Microsoft unless they change their strategy.
Right. And I don't, as I said, I don't agree with you that unless they change their strategy. I think they already have changed their strategy. And I think that they have, just like I think Apple has the opportunity to walk into the kinds of cloud-based services that Google is, growing rapidly with. I think Apple can do the same thing. I think the iPhone can open up a whole lot more now that it's that the heavy lifting of breaking the back of the carrier's lock on services is underway. I think that they can spend less time being the prow of the ship and more time taking advantage of their relationships with media companies and the like to be able to provide services. And I think that's what Microsoft does too, with the Olympics coming up, and they have the ability to be able to marry services with proprietary entertainment services, which for some time to come are going to continue to be very valuable to customers. Danny, your thoughts?
In terms of them going up against HTML5,
I'm just trying. I'm just trying to sort of wrap up the
sure.
the events of this week, and now that we've had a couple of days of perspective on it, I as I said before, I sense an exciting change in the way that we feel about what's always going on. I mean, things are always happening, but sometimes we get sort of lulled into a sense that nothing's really happening, and I don't think we have that sense this week.
I guess the thing I'd say this week is it shows you how exciting 2010 is going to be when we really have Google and Apple and Microsoft all fighting up against each other. Last year, at the beginning of the year, it wasn't Google and Apple fighting each other, right? They were partners and they were all happy, and Eric was still on their board. And this week, we've had Google roll out their own iPhone to go up against the iPhone. And we've had Apple announce that they're going to buy a mobile ad marketing, a mobile ad platform. So, hello, Google. Hi, we're going to be here in your ad space if you think you're going to be on our browser space and on our phone space.
Right. And as we move to we move off of iTunes, as the sole means of being able to market that kind of entertainment services into, a hybrid model. That's going to be very powerful for both of them.
So I'm waiting to see when we get to the end of the year if Apple announces a deal with Microsoft to make Bing their default on the iPhone. If things with Google and Apple get that bad, they don't. They're going to need a search partner. So which way would they go? I suppose there could be stranger things, but overall, I suppose it's positive that we've got all these strong competitors that are out there, and it ought to lead to more consumer choice. And supposedly, realistically, I kind of wonder if it's just going to end up with all these people hunkering down and being more closed, actually, rather than more open. And that would include Google, because I think Google is capable of being closed despite all their talk of openness as well. And I think that they'll, I think they will be open in a lot of ways, but they'll still protect themselves as much as possible. And what I'm afraid that they may do is just become more token open than real open.
All right. Well, I think that's a good way of leaving it. I want to thank Paul and Danny and Kevin and Robert. Robert, are you still there?
Oh yeah.
Oh, okay. You want to say something, sort of summarizing what you think about this week?
I think I want to echo what the other people have been saying. It's a Google Apple month, it seems like, and Microsoft. One thing about counting out Microsoft, I think they have something in Xbox that the industry should pay attention to. And if they came out with a device that looked cool, like the Google phone or the iPhone, but had hooks into Xbox Live and had a good gaming platform on it, that would get me to pay attention to Microsoft in a big way.
Yeah, I think the people traditionally overlook Microsoft's success of being able to come in and when the market is sort of matured, come in with a lower cost 80-90% version of the most popular thing, and then sell it worldwide and get a lot of market share. And I think the real battle here is whether Android's going to be able to take that over quickly enough to impact on Microsoft's strengths. And I think we're going to see a 3-horse race with everybody winning, except for Nokia.
I know Microsoft has moved a lot of the best employees over to a new mobile phone division that's combined with Xbox. So right now they seem pretty clueless, even internally. I'm talking to a lot of employees there. But if they put it all together, and toward the end of the year, I would expect to hear their solution. I know some analysts and some other people are working with Microsoft. It's going to be an interesting year to watch. What they do in mobile.
One last question, Paul. Do you think that Facebook will provide a mobile Facebook app for Android in the near future to solve that one problem?
I thought there was already one.
Well,
yeah, there's one.
There is. But it's not as good as the iPhone version.
That's what I'm saying. In other words, having parity across these two platforms, I think, is going to be the key to any kind of real switching. I don't think that people are. I'm not going to throw away my iPhone. No way.
Yeah.
I'm intrigued by what Google has done here and with the HTC phone, but and I would like to have all the services that they are rolling out. I'd like them available on the iPhone. This is basically what I'd like. And I think that we might get that. So,
yeah, I think it's inevitable as more people buy the Android phones, the apps will be as good as the iPhone. I mean, whether it's Tweety or whatever, Facebook, the apps will have to get better.
And that, in fact, is
I wonder
Ozzy's opinion.
Paul, if Facebook is going to use its strong brand and strong user base to do stuff that we don't expect from Facebook. Why doesn't Facebook do a branded Facebook phone with an Android back end to it?
I think that would be a pretty big undertaking. I think that's probably not the way that things will go. But I agree. There's a lot of really great opportunities on mobile. Mobile was a dead zone for a long time. It was like the guaranteed way to lose money investing in startups is you invest in a mobile startup and then they would get crushed by the carriers. And so I think there's a lot of pent-up innovation that's going to come out in the next couple of years.
Quick question, Danny. What do you think will be the percentage of revenue in search, mobile versus desktop, in the next 2 years?
Oh, God. I couldn't even guess realistically. I'd have to go back and even look at, we got the numbers split out so far. Mobile is going to continue to rise. Google said it again at the conference that they had seen a huge number of increase of people who are going to be using their mobile phones in that way. What I'd say would probably be maybe the bigger issue is not that the mobile queries will rise, it's that I guess that the mobile devices will become so desktop-like that you won't really think between them.
Yeah, one of the most interesting numbers I saw during the holiday season was the Kindle versions of books outsold paper significantly during the holidays.
Mm.
If you extrapolate from that to what's going on with this kind of impulse buy that you can now engender on a mobile device, it just seems extremely likely that if it's easy to be able to plunk down $2, $10, or whatever for a program, for an application, or for a set of services on a mobile phone, that it's going to dwarf the desktop. But I take your point. All right. Listen, thanks, guys. I want to thank everybody who showed up, and especially those who didn't. This is Steve Gillmor. The Gillmor Gang is sponsored by the great people at Rackspace and is powered by the incredible New Tech TriCaster. And we'll see you again next time. Bye-bye.